Okay. Just because of the lunch trumpet, we'll close that for a little bit. Guys, let's turn around and get ready to pick up, okay? All right, so lesson 14 is where we are, and I can use, guess I need to turn that off. I can use place value understanding to decompose to smaller units. Does that sound like what we did yesterday? It is exactly what we did yesterday, except here's the difference. A lot of times when we do these, sometimes it's very similar day to day. There's just one little change we make. So the change here is up to 3 times. So you could be decomposing up to 3 times. Remember when we saw the place value chart yesterday, and we borrowed from the tens place to bring it over to the ones place, let's say, or from the hundreds place to the tens place. And when we borrowed that one, it came over and it opened up and made that number larger, didn't it, in that smaller place value, okay? So you might be borrowing, that's what really they're talking about. You might be borrowing up to 3 times in some of these problems today, okay? So we're going to be using the standard subtraction algorithm, regular subtraction, and apply the algorithm to solve word problems using tape diagrams. And I hope we get that far. We should. Where we're adding what we've learned and practiced to, 1 or 2 word problems. Okay? Because of our shortened day, we're going to jump over, several of our practice things. But this is one thing that I do want us to practice, because I don't think we've practiced this in actually a few weeks now, maybe. Okay? So here we have a large number, and it asks us to write it in what? Expanded form. Yeah, we're reaching way back, okay? Way back. Now, that's a big number. There is only 1 0, so there's only one place value we're going to get to jump over, okay? So, some of you have this look on your face like, not sure, expanded form. Okay, I'm gonna do the first part and get you started. But I think let me borrow this for just a second. This may take a few rows to do, This one's gonna be long. So what would we start with? 9
million. 9 times a million.
Okay, 9 times. Yeah, this 9 is in the millions place. So 9 times 1 million. You're not writing anything right now. Plus, and then I go to the next digit. I look at where it is. It's in the hundred thousands place. So that's going to be 9 times 100,000. Okay? So you're multiplying that digit by the place that it's in. All right, I'm going to let you finish that, and we'll put the answer on the board in just a second. Start way over on the left. And if you have to, make a second or third row. double check that you haven't left any of your digits out. The only one that you can really jump over is that 0. Okay, keep going. If you're not finished, I'm going to at least get going so I can catch up with you. Okay, please quit snapping those. All right, let's put our eyes up here, guys. So once you're done writing that, put the marker down. Okay, don't let it be a distraction to you. 9 times 1 million. I got you started with that. Then what came next? 9 times 100,000 plus
8 times 10,000
plus
7 times 1,000
plus
6 times 10
plus.
7 times 1.
Okay. How many of your boards match my board or the class's board? Okay, good. This is not hard. It's just you got to stop and think, don't you? You got to make sure you're in the right place and what place value are we in. So it's not something you can really rush through. Okay. All right. Good job. I saw a lot of you working, and you seem to remember this really well. Okay. So let's move on from there. All right. Tops are on your markers. Today, guys, we are continuing on with subtraction. All right, let's lay everything down. Okay. Let's lay everything down.
Can we erase your board?
Let's lay everything down. You can erase it in just a minute. We're moving on with subtraction, and what we're going to see as we keep going, we've got probably a couple more days of subtraction after this. The numbers are just going to continue to get a little larger. And you're going to see there's more times to borrow, okay? Especially, I think it is tomorrow, we step into where there's several zeros in a row. And it's called subtracting across zeros. Nothing changes. We still do everything the same way, but it does take a little more being careful to make sure we're keeping up with where we are in the problem and that everything gets marked correctly. There's so many little parts and pieces, aren't there? Okay? That if you miss one little part or piece, it can mess you up, can't it, with your final answer? And so that's why we want to be careful. Okay? That's why we're getting so many days of practice with this. It just takes a little more practice to get good at all these steps. So let's walk through this together. We're not even putting this one on the board. The next one we will. Ishmael, what would I do first?
Subtract.
Not 7 from 5, but
5.
5 from 7. Yeah. And I'd get 2. Okay. And if I had a pen, I could write that, couldn't I? Okay. All right. So here we go. Alexandra, what would I do next? I can't take 9 from 4, so and I knew you meant that. I'm just making y'all say it the right way. Okay, so 4 from 9. Good, okay. So, Bailey, what's next?
You have to borrow from the board.
Okay, when you come here and you see that, you immediately know, I can't keep, right here, it's like, zoom, zoom, it's like driving the car. I got to put the brakes on, and I have to do that extra step. She said I've got to stop and borrow. Yes.
But there's another, you have to borrow again. Another number.
After this?
Yeah.
Yes, but let's get to this one first. But you may already see that coming. Okay, I cannot take 7 from 3. And so I'm going to have to borrow from next door. We go next door. That changes to a 1. Okay? And I'm going to add 10 to that place value. This is the hundreds. I just added 10 more hundreds to it. Okay, so this number just got much larger. 13, we don't have to think of it like 13 hundreds take away 7 hundreds. You could, because that really is what it is. But we can just say 13 take away 7, and that's what, everybody?
6.
6, okay? Faith, what comes next? I'm going to have to go and borrow because I can't take 3 away from 1. I can't borrow something that's not there. Okay? So I can't do that. Mason was right. We've got to keep borrowing. That's going to become a 1. Okay? What is this going to become, Martin?
11.
This is going to be 11 because I'm actually adding 10 more thousands there. 11 take away 3 is what, everybody? 11 take away 3 is what, everybody?
8.
Okay, there we go. I know we've just had lunch, but we got to not get sleepy. And then 1 take away, what do we imagine this is right here?
A 0.
Nothing's there, so nothing is equal to 0, isn't it? So that 1 comes down, and there we go. Okay? Anybody have a question that's like, I don't get that about borrowing, I'm not sure about that? It just it's like rounding. It takes lots of practice to get good and fluent with it. Okay? All right. Let's take just a second. Let's see if I put it up there. I didn't. So give me just a second. I'm going to show you a quick little video. There it is. I did have it up there. Okay. This is probably, well, it is a little over 6 minutes long, so it's not super long. This is just going to remind us of all these steps. You know what? I've got you on freeze. Okay.
Hi, and welcome to Math Antics. In this video, we're going to learn how to do multi-digit subtraction. It's similar to doing multi-digit addition like we learned in our last video, but there's a few important differences. The main difference is, with subtraction, the order of the problem matters. With addition, you can switch the order of the numbers you're adding, and you'll still get the same answer. 5 plus 2 equals 7, and 2 plus 5 equals 7. But with subtraction, if you have the problem 5 minus 2, you'll get 3. But you can't switch the problem around. You won't get the same answer if you try to do 2 minus 5 instead. In fact, you'll probably get confused because you'll be trying to subtract a bigger number from a smaller one. With multi-digit subtraction, it's important to remember that order matters, especially when you're rewriting your problem. Often you'll be given a problem like this, 38 minus 25, and you'll have to rewrite it with the numbers stacked up like we did with addition. But you have to make sure that the first number, the one you're taking from, goes on top, and the number you're taking away is on the bottom. Another hint is that the bigger number should always be on top. Okay, let's go ahead and try this problem. We've got 38 on top and 25 below it, and the ones places are lined up just like they should be. Now we draw our line so our answer can go below it, and we write a minus sign over here on the left to show that we're subtracting. Now we can start getting our answer, and just like with addition, we always start with the ones place column. Here we subtract the bottom number from the top. 8 minus 5 equals 3, so the 3 goes in the ones place of our answer. Now we move to the next place column to the left, the tens place. There we have 3 minus 2, which is 1. There, we just subtracted 25 from 38 and found out that the difference is 13. Alright, let's see another example. 135 minus 27. Aha! This is where multi-digit subtraction can get a little tricky. Let's rewrite our problem. 135 on top, 27 below it, with the ones places lined up neatly, and our answer line and subtraction symbol in place. There, now we can start subtracting. Uh-oh, look at this. In our ones place column, the digit on top is smaller than the digit on the bottom. How can we subtract a bigger digit from a smaller one? Did we make some kind of mistake? No, we wrote our problem correctly. The bigger number is on top. Sometimes this just happens. the top digit might be smaller than the bottom digit, so you can't subtract it, unless you borrow. Here's how borrowing works. The top digit is 5, but the digit below it wants to take 7 away.
Sorry, I don't have 7. I only have 5. Well, what about your neighbor? He's in a bigger number place. He's loaded, so you can just borrow from him. Excuse me, I've got a little problem. Do you happen to have something I could borrow?
Why, of course. Here you go. Great, that 1 will help. But if you just add 1 to 5, you'd get 6. But fortunately, this 1 came from the next number place, and it really represents a 10. And when we add 10 to 5, we get 15, which is big enough. Now, instead of this column being 5 minus 7, it's 15 minus 7. And 15 minus 7 equals 8. Okay, we've got the first digit of our answer. Now we can move on to the next column. But remember, we borrowed from that number place. It used to be a 3, but now it's a 2. It went down by 1 because we borrowed from it. Well, remember, we really borrowed 10 because it was in the next number place. But it's sometimes easier to just think of it as borrowing a 1 and getting to stick that 1 in front of the digit that needed to borrow. So in the tens place, we have 2 minus 2, which gives us 0 in our answer. And then our last column just has 1 minus nothing, or 1 minus 0, so that's still just 1. There, we've calculated that the difference between 135 and 27 is 108. All right, let's try another example with borrowing, or regrouping as some teachers call it. Let's subtract 58 from 426. Again, we start by subtracting the digits in the ones place column. Here we have 6 minus 8, and since 6 is too small to subtract 8 from, we'll need to borrow. We always borrow from the number place on the left. We'll borrow a 1, which is really a 10, and we'll write it in front of our borrowing digit, in this case 6, which gives us 16. And don't forget to make the digit we borrowed from smaller by 1. You can just cross it out and write the new smaller number above it, like this. Okay, now we can subtract from the first column. 16 minus 8 equals 8. Now for the tens place. Since we borrowed from this column, it's become 1 minus 5. But again, the top number's too small, so we'll have to borrow again. We borrow a 1 from the next number place over, which means that digit will change from a 4 to a 3. Then we put the 1 in front of the borrowing digit, which will make it 11. Now we can do the subtraction for that column. 11 minus 5 equals 6. And the last column's easy. We bring that leftover 3 down to the answer line because there's nothing there to subtract from it. And that means 368 is our answer. So now you know the basics of multi-digit subtraction. But before you move on to practicing with exercises, I want to show you one more important trick. Once in a while, you'll come across a situation where you need to borrow from the next number place over, but that digit happens to be a 0. How can you borrow from a 0? Well, you can't. So you'll have to borrow from the next 2 digits instead of just 1. In this case, instead of borrowing from 0, borrow from 40. You'll get the 1 you need to borrow, and the 40 will become a 39. Or in this case, if the 3 needs to borrow, don't borrow from the 0, borrow from the 20, and there'll be 19 left over. Or, what if there's 2 zeros in a row like this problem? Well, if the 2 needs to borrow, then borrow from the whole 500 next door. The 2 will become 12, and the 500 will drop by 1 to become 499. Get the idea? You can do that no matter how many zeros are in a row. Just keep including the next digit to the left until you get a number you can really borrow from. Okay, that wraps up this lesson. Hopefully you have a better idea of how multi-digit subtraction works. But to really get it down, you've got to practice. So be sure to do those exercises. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Learn more at mathantics.com.
Okay, so let me get back where we were. So, not only did he kind of review everything we've been talking about, but he stepped into some of what we're going to be doing a lot of tomorrow, which is that borrowing with zeros, or borrowing across zeros. He talked about looking at how you borrow with zeros a little differently than probably what you're used to. It was a new way to me also, looking at that like one big number. That's not the way you have to do it. But when we go over that tomorrow, we'll kind of remind you of that, because if that makes more sense to you, That's a good way to think about it. Okay. This is the one we just did, I think. Yeah. All right, so since we've done all that reviewing and talking about it, let's do some practice. So on your board, I want you to write this problem. Now hold on. I'm going to get it all in your way. My hair makes that easy, okay? This is one of the things that will be the first way you could get a problem wrong is simply not copying it down correctly, okay? So double check yourself after you've written this on your board. But go ahead, write it, go ahead and subtract it, and come up with your answer. $210,290 minus 45,720. Keep your numbers lined up really well. That's important. Even your commas need to be lined up. Give you just another minute. Some of are finished. Just be patient. Some are trying to finish up. Zero now becomes a 10. One right side. 10. Now you can borrow from the 10. So cross off the 10. Line 30. One and this zero. Cross off is 10. This is now a 9. You borrowed from it. This becomes 12. Now 12 takes 7. Okay, let's start working our way through this. Okay, stay with us because I may be asking you to jump in and help with part of this. All right, so Gage, what's the first thing you did?
Put a 0 under both.
Okay, let me get a pen here. So 0 take away 0 is 0. Simple enough. Okay. All right, we keep moving on. Reagan, what did you do next?
Subtracted 9 minus 2 and I got 7.
Okay, 9 take away 2, or 9 minus 2 is 7. Okay, Will, what'd you do next?
I had to borrow from I boxed up all the 210 and made it 209.
Okay.
And made the 2 a 12.
Okay, so Will decided to do it like the man showed in the video. He looked at this as one number, all the digits that were left. He knew he needed one for right here, so you crossed all that off and made it like that. Okay, because don't change yours if this is just one way to do it. Okay, 210 minus 1 is 209, right? So then he went 9 take away 5. Nope. Nope, I jumped ahead. Finish that step there, Will. You borrowed.
And my the 2 is 12.
Yes, that becomes a 12. There we go.
And subtracted that, and I got 5.
Okay, so 12 take away 7 is 5. Now this is just one way to look at it, and that's not the usual way that I do it either. If I were working this problem and I had 210,290 minus 45,720. Let me get caught up where we were. Okay, I'm going to change the color so we can see it now. Now, this is how I've learned it, and maybe you did it. Let's see if this is the way you did it on your board. When I got to that 2, I would go next door. There's nothing. 0 means nothing, so I would go next door again. I would cross out that 1 because it becomes a 0. And this 0 becomes a 10. And then I go, but I still got to get something to the 2. So I'm going to cross off this 10 and make it a 9. And now I'm going to let 1 come over here to make 12. How many of you did it that way? It's like you go next door, and then you got to go next door again. And that's perfectly fine to do that. That's how most of us have probably learned that. Now, 12 take away 7 is 5. Okay. Charlotte, what about 9 take away 5? It would be 4. 0 take away 4. What am I going to have to do there?
You're going to have to type 1 so that it's stronger.
You're going to have to get 1 from here and change that to a 1. Change that to a 10. 10 take away 4 is 6. What do we do with that 1? What? Bring it down. Did anybody get 164,570? Okay.
I was 1 off.
Okay.
I was 4. I said I was 5.
But you see how one little thing in the middle of this big problem can change our answer. Okay. Now, do you see how these are different? Which one seems smoother or less confusing? This one? How many of you are more comfortable right here? That's what we're used to. How many of you are like, I never seen it that way, but I kind of like it?
I did that last year.
Did you? Okay. So there's nothing wrong with either one of these ways, and it's one of those things where you got to go with what's comfortable for you. Okay? All right. We are going to jump right into some practice with these larger problems. We're going to the problem set. Go ahead.
I had 6 from the start, but my 10 looked like an 11.
Okay, I'm going to borrow that right there. Did y'all hear what he just said? My 10 looked like an 11. How many times do we write it in such a way? I'm not the neatest writer when it comes to numbers. Not always. And sometimes one number might look like another. Lots of times, watch this. This is real important. I usually stop and tell 4th graders this. If you're in a hurry and you do this, what does that look like?
A 9.
Could be.
But it's a 4.
But it could also be a 4. Because I've been sitting there checking people's work sometimes, and if they weren't in the room for me to ask for sure, if they were still at school, I could say, hey, come here and tell me, what is this number? But if they'd already gone home for the day, I was in a real bad spot because I don't want to mark it wrong if you've gotten it right. But I'm really not sure about that. So even with our handwriting, that can make a difference.
Has it happened before?
I'm sure it has. I mean, I know I've had trouble reading people's work before. All right, so anyway, I'll just leave that.
What was the marker? I'm pretty sure.
we're going to go to our problem set because I want to show you one problem in here. Our video helped us a little bit already. Let's see. I think it's actually on the second slide of the... Yeah. This one right here. If you would, clear off your board. Go ahead and put all of this away and get out your workbook, but just leave your workbook closed for 1 second. I'm going to write the problem on the board while you do that. Did Miss Elizabeth fix my board? Amy?
Why?
Because every time I turn it on, that same math problem is on there and I have to always erase it. And I haven't known how to get rid of it permanently.
She clicked whole board. She just kept clicking everything.
Well, maybe she finally fixed it. Good for her. I'm
I'm
going to have to give her a brownie point.
She says Wendy, she clicked the arrow, the back arrow. Wait, do you give her class brownie things too?
Uh-huh. I do.
Yay! She sang this
Yeah. Hey, but all those minutes add up, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
She said it's 1 minute.
All right, so it never hurts to see one more example that might be difficult. So I want you to put your eyes up here before you open your book. And I want us to look at this problem that has these zeros. There's not many of these today, but I still want us to know. Usually when it's down at the bottom, and it's at the bottom of some of your problems, they throw one that's a little bit of a challenge. No, not yet. They throw one that's a little bit of a challenge in there, and this is probably that one, and I usually have lots of questions. So let's go ahead and look at it. You start subtracting 6 take away 7. Immediately, you got to put the brakes on and stop and do something, don't you? Okay. You've got to go next door. Can we get something from next door? No. You've got to go next door. Can I borrow from the 4? Yes, which is actually 4,000, isn't it? That's going to become a 3. Or if you did it the way that Will was telling us a minute ago, you could put this whole number together and say it's 123. No. What would go here and here? It would actually be 2 9s. What you'll see in just a second. When I do it the way we're used to, you'll see what will be there. All right, if I borrow one from here and I bring it next door, that's going to be a 10, isn't it? Yeah. But I got to borrow to come here. So that's going to be crossed off and to become a 9. That's going to become a 10. See, it's like it's got to stop off in each place. This 10 is going to share with this 6, so we're going to cross that off, and it's going to be a 9.
Oh.
So if we'd have done this as one big number, we would have written 123,000. I guess it's more 12,399 is what it would look like. Okay, anyway. I don't want to hang out for too long on that new way because I don't want it to confuse you because most of you are used to this way right now. So now we can start. Once you do all of that, now you can just subtract. Okay? Thank you. 16 take away 7 is, everybody? Come on. We need to be quick with these. 16 take away 7 is 9. 9 take away 1 is?
8.
9 take away 1 is?
8.
3 take away 1 is?
2.
2 take away 2?
0.
1 take away 1?
0.
Do I need these right here?
No.
No.
Smiley face.
Those look like smiley face. You don't have to have those. If you write those and then they're in your answer because you got kind of carried away with it, it's okay. It's not wrong, but that's not how we write numbers with the 0 in the front. But 2,889 is our final answer. Okay? Any questions about going across those zeros that you can think of at this moment? Sometimes when we're asked that question, do you have any questions? That's not when we think of the question. But in a minute, while you're working, if you do come up with a question, please ask, okay? This is just more practice like we were working on yesterday. So you're going to turn to page 77. Okay. We did not touch on the word problems because I'm afraid if we take time with that, we will be completely out of time. I do want you to try the ones on the back. Okay, but on page 77, you know how yesterday we marked out number 2? Go ahead and do that again today. We're not going to do number 2, that whole little section at the bottom of the page. Does that ask you to draw a tape? We will get into tape diagrams. We will have plenty of work with those, but just not today in our shortened class time. Okay, so you get started and I will be around to help. Yes, ma'am. In a minute. Okay. Now's the time. Get started, guys. We don't have long and this has got to get done.